Richmond Castle was built 900 years ago. Like all castles, it was built on a hill to make it easier to defend. Most of the very thick walls have fallen down, but visitors still like coming here. Sometimes people dress up and try to show what life was like many years ago.
Oh, nice one.
Thank you.
This isn't cricket, it's a game called stool ball, which was played with the cook's rolling pin and a stool.
I know you just do it.
Here's another game called kingy. You have to hit someone on the other team.
Robert!
The favourite drink was mead, which was made out of honey and water.
To your good health.
Some jobs haven't changed. All the food had to be grown in or around the castle. They even ate peas, marigolds, mint, chives and watercress. They had to make all their own bread. Cooking was on an open fire. Shoes were all handmade, but only rich people could afford to have their shoes made for them.
Would you like a tight fit or a fairly loose fit?
Tight, please.
You like a nice tight fit. If you'd like to just pop your foot back, just cut this leather. Yes,
It took a long time to make a strong pair of shoes.
Yeah, my last pair kind of fell apart.
Obviously not one of mine. Mine never fall apart, Mr. Kidd.
Not my master how to make those, but I can do ones for just above the knee.
Boys were taught to use the longbow from an early age. 7, 8-year-old, they would start to have a longbow. The longbow is usually just slightly taller than you are. So as you grow, you would have to get a longer and longer longbow. And then the actual weight of the bow would increase as well. And the weight of the bow is the amount of weight that you need to actually flex the bow. So this would be increased going up to 60, 70 pounds by the time they were about 16. And then going up to about 100 pounds by the time they were full-grown men. So it requires quite an amount of energy to be put into the bow, and so they needed quite a lot of practice to be able to get there, to get that to be able to pull that kind of weight consistently. It was a legal requirement that everyone had to shoot arrows every holy day or holiday. So every Sunday, every man had to shoot arrows. The fletcher would be given the wood, cut as rough sections, which was gathered from local forests and woodland, usually ash or aspen. It was his job to plane down the arrow shafts into circular sections and also put the fletch onto the arrow. The fletch is the feather that fits on the end, and that's usually made from the left wing of a goose. He would also be responsible for putting the points, or piles as they're called, onto the end of the arrow.
The person in charge of the soldiers was called the captain of the guard.
Right, turn.
He had to train the guards to defend the castle.
About this. Right wheel. Charge your staves. No, you lot will actually have them up there when I say that. Ah, no. Paul, you charge your staves high. About this.
Only rich people could afford these smart clothes. Most clothes had to be made at home. To get the cloth, they had to start by combing some wool. Then they could make it into a thread. There was no shampoo in those days. They used a soap made from animal fat. The monk is teaching these children how to write. They were very lucky because in those days not many people could read or write.
Throw ink upon the table, Master Alexander.
They had to make their own quill pens using birds' feathers.
Round.
They had to make their own ink too, and use sand to dry it with. This is the Great Hall. See if you can recognize any of the games they're playing. Here's a game called Merrills. It's a bit like noughts and crosses. This was the pop music of the time.
Summer is a-coming in, loudly sing cuckoo. Grow a seed and blow with mead and spring with wood and you. Sing cuckoo, merry sing cuckoo.
There's always one last job before going to bed. There were no vacuum cleaners in those days. People would just take off their coats and sleep in the same clothes they wore during the day. Would you like to have lived in a castle in those days?